大家好，欢迎收看天天话题的法律专栏，我是沈梅琪。今天节目现场我们要访问的嘉宾是华人社区相当熟悉的华明胜律师 Mr. Scott Warmuth。Scott，welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
我知道华明胜律师他是早期就已经到过中国的美国律师，那么他事实上在美国呢也住了一段，在中国也住了一段很长的时间，所以我想节目一开始呢，我想请他用中文来跟我们的观众朋友问好。
今天很高兴和你们见面。
Very good, very good.
I made a couple of mistakes there. I don't like that.
But you still remember it.
Yeah. I used to speak a lot of Chinese. When I lived in China, of course, I had to speak it. I learned to write it and to read it. But over the years, honestly, I have, spoken less and less, and it kind of fading away.
I totally understand. Language is something that you have to use it on a daily basis. Otherwise, it will just go out the roof.
Well, Chinese is a very difficult language too.
But I understand you also speak Korean.
I speak Korean. The first language I learned was Korean. I lived in Korea for a year and was part of a U.S. government Peace Corps delegation. So yeah, we had to speak Korean, but I learned a lot of Chinese characters, and you may know a lot of Korean language is derived from Chinese as well. So, for instance, words like mountain, are very similar in both languages.
Well, I didn't know. I'm a Chinese, and I just learned something new today from you.
Oh yes, the counting, in Korean, it's derived from Chinese. So the sounds are very similar.
Okay, so back to China. Can you share your experience in China with us? 我想要请华明胜律师跟我们分享一下他在中国的经历。
Yeah.
Please.
Well, it was very fascinating. It was a great experience. One of the very best things I've ever done in my life. I went in 1986. So you're talking 30 years ago. China was quite different at that time. It was at the very beginning of the development. And so I saw a very interesting, very fascinating Chinese country, the culture, the people. And I stayed there for almost a year. I taught law. I was invited by the Chinese government to teach law at one of their universities. So, very fascinating. I mean, my interaction with the people, I'll never, ever forget, because it was a very special time, for me and for China, just coming into the development phase.
I bet.
Yeah.
But growing up in Southern California, you must have exposed to the Chinese culture earlier.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, do you still encounter any cultural shock when you were in China?
Oh yes, a lot. Actually, I grew up in Seattle, moved to California to go to law school. And so, I've lived in California for 36 years. But yes, culture shock, because at that time in the U.S., you saw very few people from China. And so it's not like today where there's this large immigration that has occurred, and the Chinese are, building themselves in the Southern California and U.S. society. So at that time there were very few. I don't think I had ever met a person from China as I was growing up. A lot of people, of course, had come from the China the other areas, Taiwan, Hong Kong, maybe even Vietnam, but you just wouldn't see people from China. So when I went, it was a very eye-opening experience. But I was married to a woman from China. So when I went to China, I was already married. And so I had this experience with interacting with people from China for a couple of years before I had gone to China.
And what was the most unforgettable experience when you were in China? 我接下来要问华明胜律师，就是他即使遇到了一些文化冲击，但是他在中国肯定也有一些很难忘的经历。Go ahead, Scott.
You know, as I think back to that experience, and I travel to China a lot even now, I go back, but that was a special time, my very first time, and I was there for, as I said, almost a year and teaching. And I just remember every stage that I went through there, arriving at the airport and seeing China for the first time. And, you know, there is not even one specific experience that I remember, but I remember just the totality of just the fascination with the country, how kind the people were. For a lot of them, they didn't know Americans, and back then it was very rare to see an American walking the streets or eating in a restaurant. So we were almost like movie stars, you know. People would gather around and watch our every move. It's not like that now, you know. China is a cosmopolitan, international country, but at that time, being one of the first in was really, you were treated very special. And yeah, I'll always remember that. It's just, it was an exciting time.
I remember just now you said that you were invited to China to teach.
That's correct.
I wonder what subject did you teach, and then I wonder what type of what do you think about the Chinese students? Well, 因为黄明胜律师之前有说过，他事实上在中国有教书，所以我想请他跟我们分享一下他对中国学生的一些看法。
Yes, I was invited by the Ministry of Law to teach law at one of their law schools. So I lived in Chongqing, and I taught at a law school in Chongqing. I taught international law, and I taught contracts. And this was one of the initial, I guess, introductions to international law that these law students received. And they were very receptive, very hardworking. This we know about, you know, the Chinese students are very hardworking, very diligent. You know, I had to teach in English, and I had an interpreter, and you know, I just saw these students would just work day and night to, you know, learn what it was I was telling them, and to really, you know, some of these concepts were new to them. And if you're in a law school in the United States and you're an American, it's still very difficult. So you can imagine how difficult it was for, you know, a Chinese student to listen to somebody teaching in English these very complicated concepts of law. Very difficult, but they work very hard, you know, very impressive.
Are you generous in giving good grades?
Yeah, I'm probably pretty easy.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to take a break, and then
Okay.
when we come back, we're gonna ask you more questions about how being a lawyer in the United States, and then some other personal questions.
All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
我们先休息一会儿，广告回来之后再继续专访华明胜律师。大家好，欢迎回到天天话题的法律专栏，我是沈梅琪。今天在节目现场为您请到的嘉宾是华明胜律师。Hi Scott, let's pick up where we left. I understand that you've been in this business for 33 years. you start practicing in 1983.
Actually, 1984.
1984. OK， 我刚刚问华明胜律师的问题就是他在法律这个行业已经有33年之久。那事实上他是从1984年呢就开始当律师，所以我想问他一下，他还记得当初为什么要念法学院吗？ So my question is, do you still remember when you want to go to law school?
Yes.
When? Why?
You know, there were a couple of things. When I was about 20 years old, I was working for a Attorney General's office, Attorney General of the state of Washington, in what they call the consumer, helping consumers who have had problems with businesses. So I thought, you know, this is really very powerful. You know, when someone does something wrong, you actually have, if somebody cares enough to help you, it can make a difference. You know, so consumers would come to us, this business has cheated us or something has gone wrong, and we actually had the power to help them. And I thought, you know, this is really impressive. I would like to do that, you know. So I had this idea of law in my mind starting around that time. Then as I, you know, continued with college and met people, I was always impressed, you know, by learning, just the act of learning, not, oh, I want to be rich, I want to be powerful, but I just want to know something, you know. I want to educate myself. And I thought law is a grand profession. All these big minds and big thinkers over hundreds of years have gone to law school. And I thought, I would like to go to law school. I would like to just learn about law. You know, I didn't think about practicing. I didn't think about, I want to be in a certain position. I just wanted to know what law was all about.
But going to law school and practicing law are quite different.
Yes.
And so my questions for you right now is, why do you love your career?
Yes. Well, it's funny you ask me that, because when I was in law school, I never thought I would actually practice law. I thought, well, I could be a teacher, I could maybe go into the foreign service, maybe work in the government. I never thought I would practice law. I just didn't think of it that way. And when I was a senior, or I'm sorry, not senior, but third year, final year of law school, my roommate lived in Monterey Park. And he said, you know, in our Chinese community, he was an attorney from Taiwan. He said, in our Chinese community, we really need people who care, people who will come help. Why don't you think about coming to Monterey Park and opening an office? And honestly, I had never thought of that. But his name was Alan Chang, very close friend, a wonderful person. And he brought me to his home and just introduced me to people, his family, his friends, showed me around Monterey Park. We went to law school in San Diego, so Monterey Park was a new area for me. And I thought, wow, this is pretty fascinating. It would be, you know, very interesting and exciting and challenging to come open an office. And so that's how I came to Monterey Park after I graduated and passed the bar. Came and opened an office. And for 33 years, or we're in our 33rd year, we've been working in the Chinese community. And yeah, very fascinating.
Yeah, fascinating indeed.
Yeah.
华明胜律师刚刚很这个详细的跟我们介绍了一下，就是他当初为什么要念法学院，以及后来出来当律师的一些经历。那么接下来我想要请问华明胜律师的是，我们知道很多华裔家长都很希望他的子女去念一个法学博士的学位。那么 甚至于很多家长觉得说，哎，你如果有一个法学博士的学位的话，你基本上很多事情你都可以做。那我们现在就来请教华明胜律师，是不是真是如此呢？Scott, you know, a lot of Chinese parents would love their kids to get a law degree because they believe that with a law degree you can pretty much do anything. Do you think that's a good advice from parents to their children?
I have given the same advice to my own children. I have.
Are they lawyers? Too?
My daughter is still in college. Will graduate this year, this coming year. My son has graduated. He did not go to law school. He chose to go into the business world. My daughter, of course, she still has an opportunity to do that. I would give that advice. Yes, I think the study of law is just gives you this incredible ability, or you're trained to think critically. So you learn to really consider all factors and think things through very clearly. I think that's a powerful thing, and just knowing what you can learn in law school from a practical standpoint is a good thing too, because it's a very complicated country we live in, and I think if you understand law, it gives you a big, a big advantage. So, yes, I mean, I think the study of law is a very honorable thing, and you don't have to be an attorney. You can do whatever you want, but it's a very good education.
But what is a law degree worth when you don't become an attorney? 我问华明胜律师的问题是说，如果你拿到法学博士的学位，但是你不当律师，那这个学位的价值在哪里？
Well, it has taught you to think a certain way, which I think you can carry that with you through your whole life. I think it has a lot of value, just intrinsic value. And from a practical standpoint, it can still maybe open doors that you may not have opened if you didn't have that kind of higher education. But I look at it as, if you remember, I said to me, it's very important learning for the value of learning itself. I think that's worth a lot. So I didn't think of law in terms of it will make me a certain amount of money, it will put me in a certain position. These really weren't important to me, although I knew that they were there. I knew it could happen, but I just wanted to learn, and I just felt, and I believe to this day, that if you study something like law, it gives you a foundation that you can use in many different ways throughout the course of your life.
接下来我想问华明胜律师的是，我到他的办公室，有看到很多一些年轻人，不管是年轻的律师还是年轻的执法人员，那都在跟华明胜律师学习很多跟法律相关的事情。所以我想知道他平常是怎么样来教这些年轻的孩子们来进入这个法律这个行业。I saw a lot of young professionals in your office, so I wonder how do you mentor those young professionals in the legal field?
I encourage them to do several things. To mentor them means how am I guiding them? How am I giving them opportunities for growth? So I ask them to get involved in the community, to do things, volunteer. Okay, this is one way of giving back for what we have received, which is valuable. But I encourage them to open their minds, to think broadly, to not think narrowly, but think broadly. Ask a lot of questions. I really believe that people who ask meaningful questions are are brilliant people. They are curious. They want to know. So I'm not talking about asking needless, foolish questions, but asking, really thoughtful questions. Why is something like this? Why is something like that? What is it that's different? Because in law, as you study cases, you need to be able to distinguish why is this case different from that case. They may all have the same result, but there's some difference to the facts.
Yes. Yeah. Never lose your curiosity.
Never.
Thank you so much for coming to our show. 以上就是我们这次对黄明胜律师的专访，也谢谢您的收看，我们下礼拜再见。